Hi guys, welcome back to our 14th lecture, and it is the second part of functions topic. And in this one, we will take a look at functions overloading. So anyway, let me introduce myself. This is me, Altaf Khan, and I'm from Pakistan. So I'm just providing free course for C++, and we have just 2 or 3 lectures remaining in order to wind up the entire course, the basics of C++. So with that said, we're just going to take a look at functions overloading. I'm sure that you guys can easily hear me, and I'm waiting for other participants as well because we have just few participants as of now. But anyway, we have to get started. In this lecture, I will cover up functions overloading, and also I've got some simple programs. I've got 3 programs that we have to work with in order to understand the concept of function overloading. So let's get started, guys. We have functions overloading. That is one of the feature of a programming language. Here we're talking about C++. So function overloading is a feature which means to declare more than one function having same name but different return type, number of arguments, or data type of arguments. See, if you declare or if you define more than one function having the same name in order to in order to reduce complexity, we can make use of function overloading, right? But you should keep in mind that both of the functions will be having different number of arguments, or the return type, or the data type of the arguments that that function can receive. So you should keep that in mind, right? That's how a compiler will know, or that's how a compiler will differentiate that what function we are calling to. See this point. Compiler will automatically call the appropriate function depending on the above entities, right? How a compiler will know that you are calling to which function? Compiler will find out that what function you want to call by looking at the number of arguments that you have passed. It will match those arguments with those functions that you have defined in your program, or the return type, or the data type of arguments that you have passed. So you don't have to do anything about it. A compiler will automatically do that for you. So this is known as functions overloading. When you define more than one function having same name but different return type, number of arguments, or data type of arguments. So that's called function overloading. I'm sure there are no questions. If you have any question, go to the chat option and ask your question. All right, so we'll work with these phenomena practically, and as you guys can see that I have got some practical examples in order to clarify this term known as function overloading. So we have the first program which says write a program which has 2 functions with same name called add, right? Write a program in which you have to define 2 functions having the same name, which is add, right? That is the function name for both of the function because we're overloading 2 functions in our program. The first one finds the sum of 2 integers and the other one that of float. So what should be the difference between those 2 functions? They will be having same name, but the first one will find out the sum of 2 integers, right? Which means their return type is int, which means integer. And the other one will find out the addition or the sum of 2 floating values. A floating value is the one which contains dot, right? So that means the return type in the second function will be float or double, right? So let's work with this program practically. Let me open up my compiler. And let's see how it works. So now I'm just opening up my compiler. Again, if you have any questions, you can ask me in the chat option. And if you're watching it on YouTube, you can definitely ask your questions in the comment section. So I've just simply opened up my, my compiler, and we're just going to first of all define two functions. So as you guys can see that the first one will be having return type integer, because that finds out finds out the sum of two integers. So if you combine or if you add two integers, the final answer will also be an integer. And if you add two floating values, the final answer must be a floating point or a floating value, right? So first of all, I have to define first function, which is function add, and it receives two arguments, which is int x and int y, right? And now let me make a function definition for this one. So how it should be, right? I should just write down the sum of two given integers is, right? And then I will just simply return x plus y. That's it. That's the first function. Now let me define the second one, which is float add, and then float, because it should be receiving arguments having the data type float. So float x and float y. And then let's create body for it. I will first of all tell the user that the sum of two given floating values is, and then I should simply return the addition of x and y. That's it. So first of all, I will call the first function, which is add, right? So let me just use cout, because I want to show, or I want to display the sum of x plus y, right? So I will simply type the function name, and then I have to pass the arguments. So suppose I want to call the first function, right? So I will simply have to pass integer values. Suppose 8, 5, and 8. I want these both values to be added. So let's see what happens. What's going to happen if I compile this program? So now it's compiling, and we guys will see that which function is going to work. So as you guys can see, that compiler by its own simply realized that I want to call the first function because I have passed the arguments. Now let's just demonstrate this program. I have two functions having the same name add, right? But the first function is returning an integer value, and the second function is returning float value. So I simply called the add function, and then I simply passed two integer values, which is 5 and 8, because I want the sum of 5 and 8. So a compiler will know by its own that what function I'm calling to because of the number of data types. If I send three values here, three integer values, I will probably get an error because both of the function are limited, are confined to receive only two arguments. So I have to pass two arguments. I simply pass two arguments. The compiler knows by its own that I'm calling to the first function, because if I add both of these values, it will give me the final value as an integer. So the compiler will look at the return type of both of the function. So it will definitely execute the first one. It will call the first one because the return type of the first one is integer. And if I add both of these values, I will definitely get an integer value. So this is definitely known as a function overloading concept. I'm sure this is the easiest way I can teach you guys. And now let's check out another one. Now I want to call the second function. I simply type the add, right, which is the name for both of the function, right? And then I put, you know, two floating point values as my arguments. And now let's see their difference. What's going to happen? I got an error that says call of overloading air double is ambiguous. So that's simple. Let's just change this value. Let's change return type, because the compiler somewhat somewhat confuses with float and double, because double is one of the data type which is also used for floating values, but it has different memory being defined with it. So if I use double here, I'm sure it's going to work. So now I'm just compiling the program, and you guys can see the difference. The sum of two integers is 13, and then a second function was being executed, which says the sum of two given floating values is 10.9, right? So you guys can check the difference. I've used same name for both of the functions, which is add, and I called both of the functions. But in the first one, I passed my arguments as integers, and I want them to add. I want their sum. So the return type must be integer. So the compiler by its own will know that I'm calling the first function because it has return type integer. So the first function was being called. Then in the second time, which means I've passed two values which are floating values, which is 3.4 and 7.5. So I want to find out the sum of these two floating values, which will definitely be a floating value. So I've used double, right? The first one, the second one, the arguments are also carrying arguments are also carrying floating values. You can say double. That's a data type which is almost same to float data type, but it has only difference between their defined, or you can say their defined memory spaces. So that's the difference. So a compiler was kind of being confused with float and double. So that's why if you make a use of float here, that would definitely work. So that's the concept of function overloading. Once you define two variables having the same name, but they have different return type, or they have different number of they have different number of arguments, or their data type is different, data type of their arguments is different, then the compiler, that's how a compiler will know that what function we're calling to. That's the simple concept of function overloading. So that was the first program. If you guys have any question in this program, you can definitely ask your question. Just go to the chat option and you can easily ask your questions. So I'm waiting for your questions. If you have any, feel free to ask your questions. If you have no questions, I will go for the second program, which you guys can see that it's almost the same. So let's get started with the second program. So the second program says that write a program that has two functions with name percentage. The function name should be percentage. We're going to define two functions having the name percentage. First function finds the percentage of 3 subjects, the other one that of 2 subjects. So that's simple. I have to define two functions. The first one will find out the percentage of 3 subjects, and the other one will find out the percentage of 2 subjects. So how a compiler will know that what function I'm calling to? It should be because of the number of arguments, because in the first one, I will be passing 3 arguments. The first function will receive 3 arguments, and the second one will receive 2 arguments, means 2 subjects. So let's overload these two functions. Let me erase this previous one, and simply I will use float because the percentage can usually come you might see percentage usually in floating value. So percentage, that's my function name, and then it will receive suppose it only receives integer. We have a total of 100 marks per subject. So if you find the total marks will be 300, right? So the first one, we have to find out the percentage of 3 subjects, right? So int x, int y, and then int z. So we have these 3 arguments for this first function. So how to find out the percentage? You guys might remember the formula. So just simply type here first the percentage of 3 subjects is, and then simply write the the returning value, which has to be float. So return. How to find out the percentage? That's simple. You can say int x, or first of all, why don't we just find out the sum of them? So int sum or float. Int sum, right? Int sum equals to x plus y. So first of all, we have to find the gain marks, the total gain marks, right? How many marks I have got out of 300. So first of all, we should find out the sum of those 3 subjects, and then I will simply return sum, right, divided by, so what's the total here? 300, or you can just try multiply by 100, multiplied by 100, and then divide this value by 300. So let's see what's going to happen. So now I have to find out, I have to define the second one, the second function, which is going to receive 2 arguments. So int x and y, and then simply just copy this message, cout the percentage. I'm just doing these programs in order to clarify the concept of functions overloading. The percentage of 2 subjects is, and then let me break that line, and now find out the int sum equals to x and plus y. That's it. Return sum multiplied by 100 divided by 300. Now here we have to divide it by 200, because in the second case we will be having total marks for 2 subjects 200, right? So just do that and you're done. So let's just find out. First of all, I want to call the first function, or let's swap it. First of all, I want to call the second function, which is taking 2 arguments. So suppose in the first subject I've got 67 marks, and in the second subject I've got suppose 80 marks. And to call the second function, so I have to pass 3 arguments here in order to match it with the first function. So suppose I've got 89 marks in the first subject, then 52 marks, and then 72 marks. So first of all, the second function will be called, and then the first function will be called. So let me change its name to percentage. So that's it. If you have any question, you can go to the chat option and definitely ask your questions. I guess you're new to the lecture and you don't know what I was just talking about. You can definitely watch the recorded one. This lecture will be uploaded to YouTube, so no worries. But again, I will just repeat this program because it's very important. Yeah. So I have simply defined two functions having the same name, but they're taking different arguments. Their data type in this case is same, but the first function is taking 3 arguments and the second function is taking 2 arguments, right? That's clear. In the first function, I want to find out the percentage of 3 subjects. So that means I have to pass 3 arguments here. And for the second one, I have to find out the percentage of 2 subjects. So the total marks for 2 subjects is going to be 200. And that's how I'll get the percentage for the, for the second one, for the second function. So if I pass 2 values here, which means I'm referring to the second function. So this will be executed. And in the second function call, the first function will be executed because I have passed 3 arguments. The compiler will know by its own that the first function call is referring to the second function, this function. And the second function call is referring to the first one because of the number of data types here. The first one is receiving 3 arguments, and the second function is receiving 2 arguments. I'm sure this is clear. So let me just compile this program. Now it's compiling and it's almost done, and you guys can see the difference. The percentage of 2 subjects is 73, right? That means this one was being executed, and the percentage of 3 subjects is 71. That means the first function was being executed. And you guys can see that both functions have the same name, percentage, and also percentage. So the difference lies between the number of arguments that I have passed to these functions, right? This is the difference only lies between the function signature and only the number of arguments, right? Because the return type is also same. So if I just change these values, suppose I want to just replace it with 30, and in this one I've got 20. So let's see. Let me just recompile it and let's run it. You guys can see that the percentage of 2 subjects is 25 and the percentage of 3 subjects is 71. So you guys can see that if I just replace it with 100 marks, that means I've got 100%. So you guys will see the change. So let's compile it. Now it's compiling. Let me run it and you guys can check it out. The percentage of 2 subjects is 100 and the percentage of 3 subjects is 71. That's how function overloading works. Is there any questions? You can definitely ask your questions in this program. If you have no questions, that means I would just assume that you guys understood everything regarding this program, and I will move to the I will just go ahead, right? So I'll go ahead for the third program. I'm sure there are no questions. This is just a simple phenomenon. So the third program is a bit lengthy, but let's just do it. Write a program that has 3 functions with max, with the name max. The function name is known as max. So write a program that has 3 functions with name max. Now we are overloading 3 functions, right? Write a program that has 3 functions with name max. The first one finds the max number among 2 integers. The second one between 3 floating values, that finds the largest values between 3 floating values, and the last one finds if the given value is greater than 100, greater than 10 or not. So first of all, we simply have to declare 3 values. And so can you guys tell me what should be the return type for the first one? The first one finds the max number among 2 integers. So can you guys tell me in the chat option, go to the chat option and tell me what return type should I be using for the first function, first max function. First one just simply finds the max number among 2 integers. So what could be the return type? Can you guys tell me? Because you guys didn't ask me any questions, that means you guys know about function overloading. So, and even I explained that in the first part of this lecture. So go ahead and tell me, guys, what should be the answer for it. What should be the return type for the first function max? I'm waiting for your answers. I'm just going to pause this lecture so you guys can answer me and make this lecture even more interesting. Okay. So I'm waiting for you guys. Come on, answer me. What should be the return type? What should I be using return type for the max function? I guess you guys got no answers because you guys, that means I would assume that you guys are confused with function overloading, but don't worry, it will take time, right? I just have to continue the flow. So I would simply use white here because I don't have to return any value. I simply have to tell the user if the given values, which one is the greatest value among the two integers. So that is it, max, and then I will pass two integers. It will, accept two arguments having data type integer, because I have to find out the max value between two integers. So if x is greater than y, tell the user first integer is greater, right? Else, then just tell the user second integer is greater. That's it. That's the first function, right? I have to use white. Why? Can you guys tell me? I'm waiting for your answer. Why did I use white as my return type here? I'm waiting for you guys. In the meantime, I'm just going to define the second variable, second function, and max. So what it's going to find out, the second one between three floating values. So it's going to find out the max value between among three floating values. So in float x, float y, and then float z. That's it. It's going to accept three floating values. So now it have to find out which one is greater, which one is greatest. So if x is greater than y and x is also greater than z, so tell the user first value is greatest, which is, or just don't write it, first value is greatest means x here. Else if y is greater than x, y is greater than x here, and y is also greater than z. So tell the user second value is greatest. That's it. Else, see out, third value is greatest. So that's the code for finding out the max value among three given values. So if x is greater than y and x is also greater than z, first value is greatest, means x is greatest. If y is greater than x and y is also greater than z, then y is the second value, so second value is greatest. Otherwise, third value is greatest. So that's it. Now let me go for the third one, which has to be, we have to keep the name same for all the functions. So the third one and the last one finds if the given value is greater than 10 or not, right? So that means it's going to accept only one value. It's going to accept only one argument. If x is greater than 10, right? Given value is greater than 10. That's it. Else, if the condition turns to be false, display the user given value is less than 10. That's it. We have simply defined three functions, and we've overloaded them, and now we just have to print them. So let's just replace its name max here, and then max here. Then we have to use cout again, max. So the first one, if I pass 90 here, so that's greater than 10, that would be returned on screen. Let me just give backslash in here, and also right up here, in order to make it look better. Also I have to use backslash in here, or in order to break the line. So that's it. And also here, backslash, right? So these are those three functions, as you guys can see on the screen. And again, if you have any question regarding this program, you can definitely ask your question. So you guys can check it out. The first one is finding out if I just put 50 here and the second value is 100, so these both are two integers. And the second one finds the max value between three floating values. So I'm just work with it. I'm going to work with it, right? So we have to pass floating values. Suppose 5.7, 3.8, 3.7 or 3.8, and then 10.5, 10.6. You guys are requested not to write anything on screen, otherwise it can lead you to removal from the online session. Thank you. So that's it. So let's just see, if I'm gonna get any error. Let's compile it. So I've got errors. There's no need of this one. Let me recompile it. So where are the remaining errors? I'm getting this error again. No match for operator, this operator. Why it's happening? Okay, so what error I got here? No match for operator, this operator. Is there any mistake, guys? Can you tell me where did I go wrong? Let me just recompile it and see what's happening. Why am I getting error here? Can you guys spot the mistake here? The first one is receiving two arguments, which is integer x and integer y. So then again, why I've got this error? All right, let's take it out. Let me press F9. Right, let me remove it as well. And also this one. And then, just recompile it by pressing F9. Where did I go wrong, man? Let me just recompile it. I don't know what's going on. Why am I getting this error? It's supposed to work. All right, let me just replace these values with double. double, and then the third one also double. So let's recompile it. And now it's compiling. I guess I've resolved the matter, definitely. So you guys, here's the result on the screen, guys. Be attentive here, and you guys can check out the result here. As you guys can see that, let's just match it with the given values, right? So you guys can match these results with the given values with the inputs here. So the second integer is greater. That means 100 is greater than 50, which is true. Third value is greatest. So you can check it out in the second function called third value that I've passed is greatest, which is true. Given value is greater than 10, which is 90. So 90 is definitely greater than 10. Have you guys noticed that how I have overloaded three functions having different, having same name, having different number of data types, and they all have different functions. They all have its own specific purpose, but they're having same names, but they're kind of familiar. So that's why we make a use of function overloading. So that was the concept of function overloading. I'm sure this is clear. And again, if you have any question, you can definitely go to the chat options right now and ask your questions. If you have no questions, the class, or you can say the lecture, is officially over, because that's all I've got for you guys. And that was all about functions. That was this one was the second part. Yesterday we were having the first part of functions chapter, and in next session we will discuss about we will discuss about file handling or object and class. So these are two remaining topics that we're going to go through. And if you have stayed this long with me, and if you have stayed tuned this long, you guys are awesome, and I'm sure you guys have learned a lot from me. So that was all for now. I'm sure this is clear. If you still have any question, go to the comment section of this video if you are watching it on YouTube, and ask your questions. Thank you for your time. Thank you for taking your time to watching this lecture. And that's all for now. I will see you guys in the next video, in the next lecture. So see you. Bye-bye.